Okay, so the class is being recorded, and my name is Dr. Sameh Galil, and this is A230B, and this is Monday. What is it that we're doing today? We'll try as much as we can and as hard as we can to finish the Duchess of Malfi. But before we do just that, I would like to ask you whether you have done the first quiz last night or not. Did you do the quiz last night?
Yes, I did it.
Okay. Who else? Raise your hand. If you did the quiz last night, raise your hand. Mm, okay. Fine. Okay. So drop your hand. So again, we're talking about the Duchess of Malfi. Let me record class. Yeah, the class is being recorded as a matter of fact. So again, it's the Duchess of Malfi. And like we said, the Duchess of Malfi represents the 17th century and even prior in terms of ideas and ideologies. And on top of these ideas would be the idea of good governance, would be hierarchies and established orders. Um, transactions among families in high places, high class families. The transactions that they do when it comes to marriage. And obviously, these were norms that people have to follow. And if they don't follow them, there are consequences, and some of those consequences are dire, like we have seen with Othello, where there was this hierarchy of color and race, but Othello and Desdemona opted uh, not to follow those norms. And of course, you know what happened to them at the end. This time around, yes, we have societal expectations. Society expects the Duchess to respect the fact that she is uh, a royalty, she is on top of the social ladder, and if she wants to get married, she has to get married from within her ranks. Obviously, she didn't do that. She opted to marry somebody, a low-born, somebody from the lower classes, and obviously she will have to pay for that. And she will pay very dearly, as we're going to see. That's why perhaps we have the framework of the tragedy, and more specifically, the framework of the revenge tragedy, because there is going to be a great deal of revenge. Everybody is taking revenge of everybody else. This is even more so in the Duchess of Malfi, as we're going to see. Um, Let me share my slides, and we are on our way. Again, this is what we did uh, last time, and perhaps prior was chapter 3, which corresponds to the perhaps the first two acts in the play. And it was about love and marriage in the Malfi court. We spoke about the Malfi court and how corrupt it is if you compare it to the French court. Who told us about the French court? It was none other than Antonio, the steward, one of those low-born individuals who work in the court. He told us about the difference between, actually, he was talking all the time about the French royal court, and of course, whatever applies to the French royal court wouldn't apply to the Malfi court, which was full of corruption and inside dealing and everything else. Um, Again, we have also noticed that Antonio is given space, a bigger space than he should have, given the fact that he is not from the high classes, given the fact that he is low born, but he was given space in which he started to share and reveal a lot about his character as a good diplomat, as even a good judge of characters, because he spoke about the different characters. He spoke about Busola, he spoke about Ferdinand and the Cardinal. And over time, we're going to realize that he has wisdom in what he has been saying and that he was correct and his judgments and assessments when it comes to the two brothers and to Busola were all correct. Why is Webster giving Antonio, the lowborn, that big space for obvious reasons? I told you that there is going to be a bombshell somewhere in the middle of the play when we come to discover that Antonio is the one that the Duchess chose for a husband. You would feel kind of shocked and surprised uh, for um, for a minute, perhaps, and then you will start to reconsider the things and say, listen, Antonio is not just another steward. He is smart. He is a good politician. He is better than even the two royal brothers. Perhaps he earned her love. Perhaps we're seeing a shift in perspective with this age and time. The fact that it is true that you get married based on who you are and who your family is, but perhaps we're seeing or experiencing a shift in perspective where there is a move from the system of inheritance to the system of meritocracy. Meritocracy means that you get promoted, you get married to somebody in a high place, not because you are the son of this or that person, and you come from this or that high family. No, you earn the respect and the love and admiration of a woman who is in high place. You earn that. You have your merits. You qualifies for that. You qualify for that, and that's why you get married to her. So this is why obviously Webster had been preparing or has been preparing us or preparing Antonio for this move so that we as members of the audience don't get surprised. We know, yeah, perhaps he earned her love. And you would ask, why didn't she get married to Busola? Busola is very philosophical and he is very eloquent. And again, Busola was not given space. Sola is presented as a killer, as somebody. It is true that he lashes out against corruption, but he is ready to be part of it if it means advancement and money, obviously. So this is what we did. It was all last time and prior, it was all about building this profile for Antonio so that when we get to know that he got married to the Duchess and she chose him and nobody else, we would say, yeah, he deserves, he earned it. So we have done all of that. We compared the two courts, the ideal French court and the real Malfi court. Of course, we spoke about this very beautiful metaphor, comparing royal courts to a common fountain, and the urge to keep this common fountain pure, like you keep royal families also pure and uncorrupt, so that it doesn't affect the entire nation. Um, Spoke about that. Um, we spoke about Busola as a malcontent character. We said that this is a feature of the revenge tragedy. You always have this malcontented character, a character who works in royal courts, but he's not happy and frustrated. Again, when you ask why, you know that he's frustrated and lashes out against the corruption in royal courts. He has the split and division and tension in his character. Um, Again, this is a feature of the revenge tragedy. We'll talk more about it. And then we're given the opportunity to look at the two brothers and what they do and the an assessment of their actions given by Antonio again, so that Antonio rises in our assessment um, and again he would dwarf any other character in the play. So these are chances where we're given the opportunity to look at the different characters through the eyes of Antonio. Again, we spoke about this idea of marriage, and we said that marriage, unless it is arranged by and blessed by the family, it is considered forbidden. If you carry it to the next level and you try to get married against the wishes of your family, you don't get away with it. And this is what happened, or what is going to happen to the Duchess. Again, while talking about their fears about or of their sister getting married, the two brothers are going to voice and communicate misogynistic views, women hating stereotypes about women and their sexuality and the fact that they don't keep their promises and vows and everything in between. Again, actually, the views of Ferdinand and the cardinal are shared by the rest of the community. For all what they may say about women and the fact that they love them and I admire them, deep down they have those anxieties about women and sexuality and everything in it. Um, Again, this is this was the age, and these were the assumptions and the beliefs of the age. Um, Again, the two brothers are going to talk about family honor if the Duchess decides to marry the wrong person, and the wrong person would be somebody not from within her ranks, somebody who is lowborn. And this is exactly what happened. The idea or the trick here is that there is obviously nothing wrong about getting married, but according to them, you need to marry the right person. You shouldn't marry beneath your rank. Of course, we still remember what Ferdinand told his sister about her being a widow, and she knows what marriage is, of course, suggesting that she has motives behind this kind of marriage. And again, they would talk about family honor and whatnot. Again, this opposition to marriage and marrying beneath one's station would express um, this concern, the whole concern of a whole society, a whole community that believes in hierarchy. Um, and also the fact that we're having this kind of cross-class marriage happening against all odds means that we have a measure of social mobility looming on the horizon. The fact that we're talking about the early modern times, and obviously uh, the world is changing, and there is room for not for acceptance, but it happens. Again, it's going to uh, gain momentum from day to day and until it becomes a reality in the 20th and 21st century. Again, that wouldn't have happened unless a new class of people have appeared. And those self-made individuals who have money, the middle class, who are lawyers, merchants, and administrators. Again, we're talking about the erosion of the idea of having a social hierarchy. Uh, so as you can see, the Duchess of Malfi in the Duchess of Malfi, we can see that the place dominant aristocratic order is in a state of crisis and chaos, and it is threatened by men like Antonio, who is an able administrator and a good statesman and everything. So we're talking about merit rather than rank here, like we said. So again, it's all about class boundaries and how the brothers want to maintain those boundaries. Again, against an onslaught on that by new ideas, where marriage should be based on uh, equality in moods, in work, in efforts, rather than in inheritance and states. Um, Again, we spoke enough about Antonio being depicted as well developed and credible. He has credible political views and ideas. So that, like I said, at the end, when we discover that he is the one who is going to get married, or he got married to the Duchess, we don't feel surprised. Um, Again, we spoke enough about Antonio. And then we spoke about what Antonio thinks of the other characters. We have heard him speak about Mussola, saying that Bussola is not what he is trying to say he is in terms of piety and respect of the rule of law. And no, he is corrupt to the core, but um, he's not given the opportunity to show it. And then he talks about the cardinal and how the cardinal is ready to do anything. I mean, he can bribe his way up. He also kind of hires people to kill other people. He uses his job as a churchman and does all kinds of bad things with it. And then he spoke about Ferdinand, and he is perhaps the first one to refer that this guy is perverse and he has a turbulent nature. Um, this is overshadowing what will happen uh, from these guys or by these guys. And then we come to the point where Antonio is given the opportunity to talk about the Duchess, and we said that uh, he said very, um, um, of course, sweet things about her, but there was a bit of an overstatement or exaggeration in what he said. Remember when he said that her beauty uh, and her lovely countenance can cure the paralyzed. If you're paralyzed, the paralyzed means that you're unable walk, she can cure you. Looking at her can cure you. And obviously, this is hyperbolic, very exaggerated. Again, if anything, it shows us that he was perhaps secretly in love with her. He wouldn't dare reveal this kind of love because he knows the boundaries. He knows that she is so high and he is so low. Again, perhaps talking about her in this way is meant to tell us that he was in love with her. That when later we get to know that he got married to her, nobody would come and say this love was imposed on him. He wouldn't have, or he couldn't have said no because she is the queen. No, it's not about that. What we're seeing here is the views of a man in love. Again, he cannot reveal or express this kind of love. Again, this is all about him describing the Duchess. Uh, and then we're given the opportunity to look at the Duchess herself. And again, if we're creating a profile for her, the profile is going to be full of good testimonials. The fact that she's very daring, she knows what she's doing, she's very confident. The only problem would be that if we look at her from the lens of the 17th century, with its established order and respect for hierarchy, we would say no, what she did was wrong because she is defying her family, her society, not living up to the expectations of her society and community, and this is obviously. But again, um, obviously, it will come down eventually to the fact that she wasn't doing anything wrong. She was remarrying, and obviously, nothing is wrong with remarrying. So, to describe her as willful, as wanton, and irresponsible would be doing her a big disservice. She may have violated the norms of society. She may have violated the norms of femininity, even uh, by offering herself in marriage, by initiating this kind of love. But we need to always remember that there is nothing wrong with getting married. And then we have situations where we see the Duchess defending this kind of marriage uh, in front of her brother Ferdinand. At one point, she would say uh, that she is made of flesh and blood. She feels like everybody else. Yeah, why not marry? And then at on another occasion, she talks to her brother and confronts him, saying, "Why should only I, of all the other princes of the world, be cased up? Why would you uh, put me in a case or in a box as if I am um, a relic or a piece of jewelry or a piece of property? I have youth and I have beauty. Why don't I marry? What's wrong with marrying after all?" So again, if this shows us, if it tells us anything about her, it tells us that she is very realistic, that she is very confident, um, and the idea of thinking about her and the other women in terms of this binary, I mean, angel or a whore, would be very unfair. Again, this is all about the Duchess. Again, an aspect uh, of the character of the Duchess would be that she is also she has views that are not very orthodox when it comes to women and when it comes to also marriage what marriage means and should be. And she talks about the authority of the church, and she believes that people would agree on that they want to get married, and then the church and religion comes later. Again, she wouldn't have said that if she was not a woman in authority, make no mistake about it. um, Again, we spoke about the idea of gender fluidity and gender confusion. The fact that in the play you see a woman behaving in a manner that you wouldn't expect of a woman, and you see a man behaving in a manner you wouldn't expect of a man. You expect a man to show masculinity, to show assertion, taking matters into his own hands, defending his love and the love of his lady, ready to risk everything for her. And but this is not happening, obviously. Antonio here is not doing that. The Duchess, on the other hand, is not conforming to the the image of women that we are familiar with, being non-assertive, shy, silent, taken for granted. No, she's different. She's um, doing what men are not doing. She defends her love. She even, when it comes to courtship, she's the one who signals to Antonio that she's in love with him. She's the one who even places the ring on his finger. And when he kneels in response, she raises him up again. And even Antonio notices that he is not doing what a man should do, and that she's doing everything. So again, we are in for a different type of woman, not the non-assertive, silent, taken for granted woman or women that we are so used to or so trained to see. Again, some of her speeches are very daring and very significant, and they would allude to this idea of gender confusion. At one point, she says about this second marriage and what she can do with her brothers if they interfere. She dismisses them with withering contempt, and she says, "If all my royal kindred lay in my way unto this marriage, I would make them low footsteps." Can you imagine? She says, "I'm ready to go to any length defending this kind of marriage, and if all my royal family stands or stood in the way of this kind of marriage, I will make of them steps that I'm going to climb to reach this kind of marriage." Very daring indeed. Um, Another example of her daring personality, her valor, her difference would be again, you have Antonio expressing fear, telling her but but for your brother, what will we do if your brothers discover? She would say, "Don't think of them. All discord without this circumference is only to be pitied and not feared." I pity them, I don't fear them. Again, this is also a statement that shows us how strong-willed she is. Um, Again, you would think of Antonio in a different with different eyes because he is presented as helpless and as overwhelmed by the course of events. Even him, even Antonio himself acknowledges this gender confusion thing when he says to the Duchess, "These words should be mine. I should be saying this. I should be doing what you're doing, and I should be saying what you're saying." He acknowledges the fact that he is inferior not only in status, but he is also inferior in terms of strength and power of character and everything. And then we have Criolla, and Criolla is the maidservant of uh, of the Duchess, and she's here in order to, kind of give us another different opinion. Somebody who is going to talk about the Duchess and what she does, and showing undivided opinion. She doesn't know whether the Duchess is great and should be admired by through what she does, or perhaps she needs or she deserves pity because what she's doing is sheer madness. This is what Criolla is saying, but it shows a fearful madness. I owe her much of pity. So whether the spirit of greatness uh, or of women reign most in her, I don't know whether this is greatness, what she's doing is daring and great, or perhaps it's sheer madness that deserves my pity. Again, taking the cue from Criolla, a critic by the name of Wigham is going to call the Duchess a cultural voyager who arrogates to herself a new role, that of female hero. He's saying that she is navigating the complexities of life back then with valor, with strength of character. So she is a cultural voyager in the sense that she is on a trip of discovery. She is charting new territories and new ideologies. She is for the first time telling everybody that women have a voice, they can choose for themselves, they can do this, they can do that. So in this sense, she is navigating territories that are quite uncharted. The ideas that she is bringing, the ideas that she is reflecting by her deeds are obviously new. So the Duchess is moving knowingly into uncharted waters, beyond the bounds of socially accepted behavior, where there will be no clear path to guide her, because she is initiating things. She's the first one to do all of that. So she is taking the role of all the men that you can think of, showing masculine heroism when there was and where there is none. And this is obviously the end of Act 1. And then we move on to Act 2, where you have discovery. Discovery of what? Discover, I mean, the brothers are going to discover the fact that their sister got married, and over time they are going to also discover the identity of the one that she got married to. Who is going to tell them? It's Busola. Busola is going to send them a letter informing them not only of the marriage, over time is going to also inform them of the fact that she now has a son. What would be the reaction of the two brothers? Of course, they are going to be very angry, and of course, they are going to make, pledges of and vows of revenge. Again, if you compare Ferdinand and the cardinal and their reactions, you wouldn't believe what Ferdinand is doing. Even the cardinal himself is very surprised at the reaction of Ferdinand. Ferdinand reaction, I mean, it's not anger that we're having, it's pathological anger, very angry. I mean, he is, um, you know, using animal imagery. He is referring to his sister, using the worst of animal curses and everything. So it seems that I mean, Ferdinand's attitude to the Duchess is revealed to be very obsessive and pathological. Uh, Again, whatever he said is also very anticipatory of what he will do. He tells Ferdinand that he will not have her marry again. She did marry, but obviously she was not going to marry again. She's going to die. Um, Again, Webster arouses our curiosity about Ferdinand's motives, giving us a glance of the turbulent, unstable personality uh, that we now associate Ferdinand, and that which again Antonio told us about earlier. So when the brothers confront the Duchess, it is Ferdinand whose language is compulsively sexual. Again, over time, Ferdinand is going to lose control over himself, and he will not be able to stop himself from visualizing the Duchess in the shameful act of sin. Very bizarre, very obscene. So there will be no doubt from this point forward that Ferdinand is the play's principal villain, albeit a fascinating one. This is obviously, yeah, this is the end of the chapter. Now we move to the second chapter. Do you have any questions so far? Any questions? Anyone on their phone? No questions? Okay, طيب. Are you sure you can hear me? Raise your hand if you can hear me. Mm. Okay, good. Thank you. Drop your hands. Okay, now we're moving to chapter 4, and the title of chapter 4 is Tragic Conflicts. So again, it's still the Duchess of Malfi, but this time around, we're not talking about love, we're talking about tragedy, we're talking about a conflict. Okay, so if you have a conflict, that would entail that you have two parties to a conflict, two sides. So on one side, you would have the Duchess, you would have Antonio, and of course, they introduce new ideas, the idea of meritocracy, the idea of marrying for love. On the other hand, and the second party or side of the conflict would be Ferdinand, the Cardinal, Bissola. Of course, they embraced the old ideas. Among them would be the fact that marriage should be an agreement and a transaction between two families. The idea that the a widow shouldn't get married, and everybody should be kept in his place. They don't want people to challenge any of the hierarchies, whether it's a rank or a color and race hierarchy. So this is the conflict that we will have. So conflicts can be innocent, it can be honest. I mean, you can have honest difference of opinion, and there is nothing wrong with that. But sometimes people carry them extremes and they become violent and bloody. And this is what we're going to see uh, in the rest of the play. Okay, so we have seen this kind of conflict in terms of ideas right from the very start, but that's going to intensify as we proceed in the play in Acts 3 through 5. Again, typical of tragedies, we're going to have a reversal of fortune. Fortune is luck. When you're lucky, when you're happy and everything, material fortune, and also being lucky on the abstract level, happy, living have a happy kind of life and everything. Reversal means that there will be a stop and an end for this kind of happiness, whether material or abstract. And of course, you know what we mean by this reversal of fortune. We mean that the Duchess and Antonio, we will get to know that they are happily married and they will have a son and then another son and a daughter, and it seems that they are happy. But there is going to be a reversal of fortune, then their happiness will turn into misery and adversity when the two brothers know about this kind of marriage and they start to kind of intrigue and plan against it. Again, when we meet them for the first time uh, in Act 3, when we meet the characters, there are signs that time has elapsed, so that the couple now have more children. They have two sons and a daughter. uh, Again, there are occasions when Ferdinand, Bussola, and the Duchess are on the stage. Of course, the blame game starts, and then Ferdinand is left on the stage with Bussola, and he's going to reveal his state of mind. The fact that he's determined to force a confession from her that she got married, um, and obviously she got married to the wrong person. He's going to ask Bussola for a key to the Duchess' bedroom or bedchamber, and obviously this is also negative and bad because you wouldn't sneak into people's bedrooms unless you have a nasty plan in mind. Perhaps you want to steal. Obviously, he doesn't want to steal, or you want to kill them, or the obviously this is a negative thing. And if anything, it shows us how how Ferdinand starts this journey, downward journey into the abyss. So where are we now? We are in the Duchess' bedchamber or bedroom, where we know as audience that Ferdinand is in the wings, is behind the curtain. Again, that would build suspense and would build fear and anxiety and tension among us as members of the audience. We feel very fearful for the Duchess and what may happen to her. Again, if anything, it shows us how vulnerable the lady is. Okay, so this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the Duchess after her husband and Cruella went out. She is left alone with Ferdinand. She doesn't know that he is behind the curtains. And if anything, that would show us how isolated and vulnerable she is now. Again, I mean, he appears to her and she starts to speak to him. Uh, and he starts to also, I would like you to register the difference between how he speaks and how she speaks now. His language is full of vulgarity, is full of animal imagery, threatening, telling her that you will not live one more day and stuff like that, threatening all the time. But her language is very kind of super. Her language is very highly elevated. She didn't lose control over herself and her language. And she speaks logic. She speaks sense. So his language suggests the depth of his anger and agitation, and it abounds in rhetorical questions, like when he says, "Virtue, where art thou hid? Where virtue, where are you hiding?" I mean, he's referring, alluding to the fact that what she did was not virtuous. Uh, and then, like we said, he would invoke all kinds of animal imagery in what he said. Die then quickly, and the howling of a wolf is music to thee, screech. He's using, when he talks, even when he uses animals, he doesn't use beautiful animals, animals that we associate with sweetness and beauty. No, he chooses the wildest and the dirtiest and the most the worst of animals, like wolves and owls. Again, using or making references to animals from time to time, kind of indicates his fondness for likening human beings to the most negative aspects of the animal world. Uh, Again, when he meets her and uses this language, look at how she deals with him. Again, she doesn't exchange curses with him. She can do that because she's the queen and the duchess. She wouldn't do that. She speaks sense. She tells him, "Yeah, I got married. What's wrong with that? I got married. Would you like to come and meet my husband? This is legitimate marriage. I didn't do nothing wrong, obviously." He leaves the stage, threatening and everything, but he doesn't know yet who the husband is. But he threatens that she would be undone and ruined, and the fact that he will never see her again. He will never see her again alive. This is true. Again, this is very prophetic. This is anticipatory of what he will do to her. He will ruin her. He will kill her. Yes, true. Again, you would compare what he said to her and what she said back. Obviously, like I said, her language was very clear. She has those straightforward statements. She would address logic and sense in him, but he wouldn't listen. At one point, she said, "I pray, sir, hear me. I am married." She told them, I'm married and I don't live, uh, uh, it's not illegitimate. It's a marriage. It's a marriage, and marriage is legitimate. As if she's trying to tell him that as we speak, hundreds and thousands of people get married. And would you like to see my husband? Come and see my husband. And then at another point, she would say, why might not I marry? I have not gone about in this to create any new world or custom. Why wouldn't I marry? I didn't create a new custom or a new habit by getting married. Everybody gets married every day. Again, this is true. Yeah, everybody gets married every day. Yeah, we believe this. But again, this kind of marriage was radical and unprecedented because she got married to somebody beneath her rank. Again, you would compare the Duchess to and her conduct and her control to her husband's conduct. Remember, whenever you need him, he's not there. He only appeared after Ferdinand left, for example, carrying a pistol, small gun, and making threats. Only once Ferdinand is safely out of the way. But the Duchess, she's different. She takes matters into her own hands. She is very resolute. She knew that the encounter between her and her brother Ferdinand does not abode well, and Ferdinand will plan something. That's why the minute he left, she started to plan, and she came up with the plan. And the plan was about telling everybody that Antonio is a thief, he stole money, and they are pressing charges against him. That's why he escaped. So he's going to escape to a place called Anacona. Obviously, she is trying to defend her family. She knows that Antonio and the kids can be killed. Again, it's not about where she planned for him to be, it's about taking action right away. Again, you would expect Antonio to be the one who is thinking of a solution to this problem. Again, what is interesting and what will come out of this charge against Antonio would be that Busola is going to come to his defense, which is very strange. Busola is going to defend Antonio, and he's going to refer to the fact that this is perhaps expected of people in high places. They change color, they change mood on a whim or at a whim. They are fickle, they change. So today you are in favor with them, they give you everything, they shower you with favors, and tomorrow you may fall out of favor, and in this case, your life can be in danger. So this is how and why he is defending Antonio, because Antonio is like him. He's also low-born, and whatever happened to or happens to Antonio may happen to him. Um, Again, if anything, it tells us that Musola has a throbbing heart. I mean, he can feel, he can still feel, he can still question what he does and everything. And this is an occasion during which Webster can tell us about what happens in royal courts, um, and how people can be dismissed on a whim. So it was the whim of the Duchess which brought about this kind of scandal for Antonio. He left because the Duchess decided that he is a thief. Uh, Again, and this was also an opportunity for uh, Busola as a malcontented character to talk uh, about life in the royal court and what awaits people who are lowborn. They something may happen all of a sudden, and they can fall out of favor, and in this case, their life can be undermined and be um and can be in danger. So this is all a soliloquy that Busola is given. And of course, you know what soliloquies are. This is a time when the character is given space on the stage alone. He shares with us what he thinks, and otherwise we wouldn't know what he is thinking of. Again, and this is all about showing us Busola, in spite of his destructive powers, he also has some conscience, and he also can think and can feel sympathetic sometimes. But again, we should not lose sight of the fact that he is ready to do anything to become better materially, and he is ready to 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 serve anyone, provided that he gets the reward. He wants preferment, and he remains, as always, the servant of forces he knows are wicked. And then we move to Act 3, Scene 4, and this is what we call the dumb show. I'll give you 10 minutes. I'll give you a 10-minute break, and then when we come back, we finish this. Okay? So I'll see you in 10 minutes, inshallah. Hello, can you hear me? Pictures of my
Yes, yes, we can.
Act 3 scene is called the show. You know what a show is? Show is about spectacle. Show is about people performing. So this scene is not what would turn into a show. It's a dumb show where people performing in this show do not speak, they are silent. So dumb means silent, you cannot talk. And it's not about the fact that they cannot talk, but it is about the fact that sometimes silence is gold. Silence is gold, it means that it can be more expressive than words sometimes. So this is what is meant here. Webster, by introducing the dumb show in Act 4, Scene 3, which is, by the way, is a feature of the revenge tragedy, is sharing with us ideas that he wouldn't have otherwise done if he put words into the mouth of the different characters. So, what is this dumb show about? Remember where we stopped? We stopped with Ferdinand and the cardinal threatening that they are going to take revenge from the Duchess, each in his own way. And of course, you know, when it comes to Ferdinand, because of this kind of pathological and obsessive love for his sister, he would go to any length. Actually, he wants to torture her and to subject her to all kinds of psychological torment before she actually dies. And this is exactly what they are doing. The dumb show is about them, staging what looks like um, not a trial, but I mean, banishing their sister, uh, and in this dumb show, we see again all kinds uh, practices that are meant to uh, um, kind of subject her to all kinds of um, psychological deterioration. And then part of it would be the fact that she's going to be banished along with her kids, and then you would have people or pilgrims commenting on that and stuff. So again, the significance of the dumb show, the significance of the silence in the dumb show is that it makes us, I mean, the characters focus more on what is being said or what is being kind of hinted at and indicated through gesture. It can give us more meaning, and it can also create this kind of distance between us and what is happening in the play. Because for so long we've been so attached to what is happening, we get up and down with what is happening. We get excited sometimes, and we get dismayed some other times. So the dumb show is Webster's way of telling us you need to take a distance so that you can be in a better position to assess what is happening. You shouldn't be get caught up in the emotions of the characters. So the visual tableau asks us instead to sit back and evaluate the moral implications of what is happening on stage. So where are we? In the dump show, we are in a religious shrine, a place of worship, where the music is solemn music, sung by a group of churchmen. And then we have the cardinal, uh, uh, kind of shredding his religious clothes and putting on the clothes uh, of a soldier. But this is, of course, comic and funny. Um, Again, if anything, it indicates how corrupt he is on the different levels, whether as a man of God or whether as a soldier. So the mimed action of the Dutch's banishment gives a center place to another symbol, which is the wedding ring, which her brother removes from her finger with violence. So, and then the dumb show is introduced to us through a dialogue between two pilgrims who begin by anticipating a noble ceremony and end in a state of some distress, exchanging anxious questions and judgments about the ceremonies they have just witnessed. What do they say? They say, yeah, it is true that we don't condone what the Duchess did, given the fact that such a great lady would have matched herself unto so mean a person. She does not condone that she uh, um, gets married to somebody beneath her. But at the same time, they pity her because she is a free prince, and she shouldn't have been treated this way by her brothers. What do we know about those pilgrims? We know that they lack individual identity and they remain unnamed. Again, that would establish some kind of physical bond with the audience. And that would allow us to also believe that they are objective in their assessments. Their commentary, I mean, I'm talking about the pilgrims, of course, their commentary invites us to grasp the moral and political significance of the Duchess' banishment rather than her own experience of it. And it presents her, I mean, whatever they said, present her and her family as victims of institutional conspiracy, which what it is. So far we have seen Webster using two devices in the play. One of them is modern, uh, I mean, being realistic in what he depicts, using the tragedy and everything. And one is medieval, using the dumb show in Act 3, which is meant to distance us from the action unfolding on stage in order to promote our understanding of the larger meanings being conveyed. And then we move to Act 4, where there is a great deal of talk about tragedies in early modern times. Again, we're talking about the torture and the subsequent death of the Duchess and the punishment meted out to her for her forbidden love and marriage. How is she presented now? She is imprisoned in her palace. She is exposed to a dead man's hand, complete with a wedding ring, a wax tableau of her husband and children presented as dead bodies. And finally, a dance of mad men. Again, this is all meant to break her spirit, to crush her before she actually dies. This is psychological torment like no other. Again, this is not new. Remember that the play is a revenge tragedy, and we have seen this happening, this psychological torment, this idea of bloodshed. We have seen that in other plays in the during the times. We have the Spanish tragedy by Thomas Kidd, where there is a great deal of horror and blood performed and presented on the stage. And then you have people coming and explaining what is happening. You normally have this pattern, a play within a play. And then comes the hero and explains the shocking to the shocked on stage audience the meaning of his violent actions. Again, this is what we have been seeing in the revenge tragedies of the time. And this is what we have seen. And then rather than having the hero explaining, because obviously the hero here is none other the victim, the Duchess. She cannot explain. She doesn't understand. That's why Busula is the one who's going to reveal what is happening. Um, he says to her, he means Ferdinand, does present you this sad spectacle that now you know directly they are dead. Hereafter you may wisely cease to grieve for that which cannot be recovered. Yeah, it's about crushing her soul and breaking her will. So normally, as a feature of the revenge tragedy, you have a theatrical spectacle taking the shape of a play within a play. Um, so if anything, it tells you that Ferdinand is using uh, the play within the play technique as an instrument of control. So Webster here shows us that his aristocratic villain, Ferdinand, uses theater as an instrument of control. So a whole act is devoted to the torture and murder of the protagonist. And obviously, it's because it's the Duchess and nobody else with her grandeur and nobility. Her death takes on uh, an enormous significance. Again, it shows us how evil her brothers are, and it shows us how strong and tough um, she is. She is daring, she is God fearing, she is ready to endure her torments and meet her death with so much courage and dignity. Her torture and subsequent death also reveals her Christian attitudes to death and suffering. And again, she keeps telling people that it is true that we may be separated here on earth, but in the eternal church, so I do hope we shall not part. Thus, she believes in the hereafter, that they are going somewhere better in the hereafter, and where they are going to meet. She believes in divine providence, that God is just and shall be rewarded, and all this human suffering will come to an end. She believes that she will be reunited with Antonio after death. And this is what she asks Crayola. Dost thou think we shall now know one another in the hereafter, in the other world? She says. We know we're going to see and know each other in the. Don't you think so, Crayola? Again, those tough moments reveal how strong she is. I'm Duchess of Malfi still, one of her affirmations. Um, to the extent that one like Busola is amazed and he keeps asking her, does, does not death frighten you? Aren't you afraid of death? And she would tell, why would I be afraid of this? Who would be afraid on it, knowing to meet such excellent company in the other world? She believes that she is going to meet good people. She's going to meet her family and get reunited with them. Such a deep faith in God and in the hereafter and the promises of God. And then here we have her final speech. Again, it's all about her resourcefulness, her Christian belief. Um, again, you can also feel that obviously religion is not her only source of strength and pride. She also believes that she's royalty and she's an aristocratic, and as an aristocratic, she has to bear and grin. She has to endure suffering no matter what. So the idea lies at the heart of the aristocratic concept of honor, which makes the capacity to face the terror of death without flinching the measure of individual heroism. This is what she is exhibiting, individual heroism, because she believes in the aristocratic concept of honor. Again, these are all signs that we normally associate with men. They show masculinity, but this time around, it's the Duchess and nobody else, which makes her, or which makes people call her perhaps the first fully tragic woman in Renaissance drama. Again, she will die. And the moment she dies, Puzola is going to go to Fernand and tell him that I killed her for you. Where is my reward? And obviously, Fernand is going to dwindle even more, and he is going to feel regretful. But of course, it's too late. In order to relinquish responsibility, he is going to tell Busola, no, I'm not going to give you anything. Because deep down, if he gives him money, he is acknowledging the fact that he is the one who ordered her death. And he doesn't want to feel this. Because remember, the love he had for her. Again, Busola, after he got rejected by Fernand, is going to come back and express and show repentance. And he's going to swear that he's going to take revenge from the killers. And obviously, he happens to be one of them, which is very ironic. He's going to go to the Duchess, and sometimes when people die, sometimes they come very momentarily to life, um, and they show signs that they are alive. And he tells her that your Antonio is alive and he's reconciled to your brothers, which is obviously not true here. It is true that he is alive because he didn't die yet, but he is not reconciled. Again, he is going to show signs of remorse, which I don't myself buy. And he's going to start on a spree of revenge and killing. The whole play is going to crumble down. Everybody is having his own calculation. Even Fernand is so sad and is so um, kind of annoyed. He wanted her killed, but when she got killed, he felt bad. That's why he banishes or dismisses Busola, because he doesn't want uh, to admit any responsibility. He is in a state of denial that she got killed and that he was responsible for the killing. Um, his reaction to Busola is a typical reaction. When you have a ruler who blames the servant for committing the murder he himself commissioned. Again, his or Ferdinand's extreme reaction to the Dutch's death testifies to his mounting mental instability. And this is one of them. Cover her face, mine eyes dazzled, she died young. Young. It shows you that he loved her, shows you that he knew her merit, he knew her worth. He, uh, he has of, she has been often admired for the glimpse. I mean, she was so beautiful and so innocent and so everything. And of course, Ferdinand knows all of them. He's falling apart, deteriorating into the lunacy that will characterize him for the rest of the play. This is what he says very significantly. I'll go hunt the badger by owl light. It's a deed of darkness. I mean, he's telling himself that this killing her was a deed of darkness. And then we move to Act 5. And in Act 5, can you imagine? Act 5 does not have the protagonist or the tragic heroine, which is very strange because normally the tragic hero or heroine stays with us until the end of the play. He or she gets killed at the end of the play in Act 5, not in Act 4. That would trigger a lot of criticism. Lots of critics are going to criticize Webster for that, for killing his tragic heroine in Act 4, not in Act 5. And some of them are feminist critics, and they would say that this is a conspiracy against women. It's only because the tragic hero this time around is a woman that Webster couldn't find it in his heart to make her stay until Act 5. So what do you expect Act 5 to be like without the Duchess? Remember that the Duchess brings vitality, buoyancy, light to the world of the play. She gives enthusiasm, she does things, she moves things. So what happens if she's absent? Nobody in Act 5 is qualified to fill the gap that she's going to leave. And this is the problem that we have with Act 5. It turns into a farce of a play or an act. Doesn't have the seriousness that we're so used to in the rest of the acts. You don't feel it's so bizarre. People killing each other, misunderstand. There is a great deal of character. Uh, people um, missing the identity of uh, each other and killing each other because they think somebody was somebody else and stuff. So that's why Act 5 is not very successful. Yeah, it is true that there is a measure of revenge, and part of this revenge is directed against those who killed the Duchess. But it is also true that without the Duchess in Act 5, the play is meaningless. Unless you would compare the noble death of the Duchess in Act 4 with the meaningless death of the different characters in Act 5. So Webster has been rebuked, scolded, especially by feminist critics, for killing off his heroine at the end of Act 4 rather than at the end of Act 5. Lots of the critics were baffled by the tone of Act 5, which seems to be aiming not for high seriousness, but for a kind of black comedy. So Act 5 becomes or turns into a black comedy. So you would ask, what is it that Webster was trying to achieve in Act 5? Why write a tragedy with a tragic heroine who is absent from the entire last act? People keep asking. So what do we have in Act 4? Let's unpack it. We have an echo scene where there is talk about characters or the characters hearing the echo of the voice of the Duchess, but she's not there. So perhaps this way Webster is making up for the fact that the Duchess is not there. So at least an echo of her voice. It is as if he's trying to say, if she is totally out of the picture, the whole fabric of the play will collapse. And then you have the different characters talking about hearing her voice, feeling that she haunts them, and things like that. Like, for example, Busolo. Busolo, tell me things the Duchess haunts me. Like I said, we have another scene where um, it is indicated that she is shouting out uh, um, to Antonio, asking him to fly your fate, warning him of what may happen to him. She's trying to warn him of impending danger. Oh, fly your fate. Again, this is also revenge tragedy uh, classic, where you have the talk about ghosts and echoes and everything. This is also one of the features of revenge tragedies. And then we have retribution and consequences. people receiving what they what they gave. You receive what you get. If you gave something good, you receive it. If you do something bad, you receive. And this is exactly what happens to Ferdinand and the others. They deteriorate, they become more of animals rather than human beings. They behave like animals. They feel like animals even. And they get killed at the end. So we have Ferdinand who is suffering from lycanthropy, uh, and it's a delusion in which one imagines himself or herself to be a wolf or other wild animals. So Ferdinand believes that he has been transformed into a wolf whose skin is hair on the inside rather than the outside, manifesting very clearly a mental collapse attendant on the murder of the Duchess. So he's driven mad by guilt and a self-revulsion that convinced him of being no better than the most vicious of animals. So this is obviously a judgment on his appalling cruelty and a reminder of the flickering moral awareness that has always been part of his character. So he is convinced not only that he has turned into a wolf, but that he is damned for what he did. And then comes the cardinal. He is also going to be punished severely. He is shown to be consumed with guilt, but he doesn't stop plotting and killing. He dispatches Bussola still to assassinate Antonio, and he murders Julia, the mistress of whom he has grown weary, by having her kiss a poisoned Bible. And poisoned Bibles is also a feature of revenge tragedies. So again, this is all done within the conventions of the revenge tragedy. He has a bad conscience. He gives a number of soliloquies showing the fact that he wants to pray, uh, but he lacks any real confidence in the power and the efficacy of prayer or praying. He also expects uh, uh, to go to hell. So his soliloquies makes clear the extent of his mental disturbance. Of course, we're talking about the cardinal. And then we have Busona. Remember, he was partly haunted by the death of the Duchess, and he has this desire to repent, but obviously um, it's difficult to repent after all what he has done. Um, he was trying kind of to protect Antonio from the cardinal's homicidal intentions, but he ends up inadvertently doing the cardinal's bidding. He kills Antonio by stake. Again, this may sound like a comment on Bussola's quest for redemption and the fact that he never attains it. It's an enactment of the sad fact that he is just too tainted by his past actions to renounce his role as hired assassin. He cannot repent. God is not granting him that, no matter how hard he tries. So, as you can see, the play has turned into a savage farce far from the seriousness of the previous acts, especially four. The play has turned into a mere dark comedy, a savage farce. And again, it's all about, mistaken identities and people killing each other, inventions, and also in misunderstanding. So they stab each other, with Ferdinand stabbing up his brother and Busola in an undignified scuffle, having no idea where he is or what he is doing. Busola then stabs and kills Ferdinand, and that would be the end of all the killing. And that tells you about the difference between the noble death of the Duchess and the base, meaningless death of the other characters. And in order to drive those ideas home, the idea that what they did was for nothing, was in vain, you would see how and hear how those dying characters think of life, of what they did, what their achievements were. You wouldn't compare what they said to what the noble Duchess was saying in her final moments. Busola, for example, is going to talk about the nature of earthly existence. According to him, we are merely the stars' tennis balls, struck and banded which way pleased them. He says, we're mere. What are we looking for God's sake? We are mere tennis balls. And fate is playing with us here and there. We have no will of our own. We are mere playthings. In other words, human beings have no free will and no real significance. We're simply the playthings of probably malevolent cosmic forces. And then comes Ferdinand. In his dying moments, he says, my sister, oh, my sister, there is the cause on it. Whether we fall by ambition, blood, or lust like diamonds, we are cut with our own dust. Again, life is nothing. We are nothing. According to him, we have this capacity for self-destruction. We are prisoners of our own temperaments, driven by forces, passions, and instincts over which we have minimum control. He is only realizing that now, only now. So as you can see, if Fernand is focusing on the human personality, Bussola is focusing on the cosmos. Again, but they are allied and united in the sentiment that human beings exert precious little control over what they do. And then we have Antonio, and he eloquently says, in our quest of greatness, like wanton boys whose pastime is their care, we follow after bubbles blown in the air. He says that life is a bubble, that our ambitions are bubbles, and we are pursuing bubbles. And what happens to bubbles? They explode at the least provocation. They are so thin that they explode. So, according to him, the search for self-advancement is ultimately futile, and his dying wish and perhaps piece of advice to his eldest son is fly the course of princes and thereby avoid the trap into which his father fell. And then we have the cardinal, uh, who says, "Now I pray, let me be laid by and never thought of." He wants to have no mention or significance so that nobody would remember him. He knows that he is nothing. He is so insignificant. So, as you can see, in the absence of the Duchess, the male characters all stumble and stagger towards death, persuaded of the vanity and meaninglessness of their lives. Again, you would compare the so many deaths of the characters and the death of the Duchess. She died alone in an act of her own. Her death appears to be heroic, full of self-possession and full of grace. You wouldn't compare that to the cheap death that we have of the other characters. Again, perhaps this is what is meant. Uh, all the characters agree, or perhaps you are united in having this degree of clarity and self-knowledge. So its rich, eminent things is what the play has come down to. Character's death means erasure from the historical record, a dead, a dreadful fate for the members of the community. But for the Duchess, it's different. She believes in the hereafter. She is embracing death because she knows that she's going to be with good company in the hereafter. And then you have perhaps hope when we see the kids, the son of the Duchess. That may be a sign of hope. Again, but we cannot prevent ourselves from what Antonio was saying, that let my son fly the course of princes. Again, we're oscillating between hope and lack of confidence in what the future may hold for the kid if he remains in the royal court. Again, the question would pop up again about the Duchess of Malfi as being a tragedy. Yes, it is a tragedy. Again, and the character of the Duchess is both portrayed as noble, uh, but again, there is this idea that she is not blameless. She can take part of the blame. So it would be hard to argue persuasively that it blames her for the tragic course of events. No, she's, I mean, it's a question that people may differ over and debate whether she is to blame or not. Again, you need, or it depends on the perspective. If you're talking from a 17th century perspective, yeah, that she can be blamed. Perhaps from a 20th and 21st century perspective, what she did was among the rights, the right to choose whomever she wants to love and get married to. So what we have here is a tragic word showing the individual trapped by destructive social and political ideas and practices, yet powerful insofar as she can affirm her integrity and human dignity even in defeat. And this is basically what the whole uh, play is about. So, do you have any questions? No. Okay. Anyway, on this note, with this item, we come to the end of today's class, and I'll see you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Bye bye.